This is Riley and Scott Rewind on News Talk 1440 WROK.
All right, now we're spending some time with Tom Johnson, the book Fixing Illinois, Politics and Policy in the Prairie State. We're fixing our state one step at a time right here on the radio.
We'll get linked up on our Twitter feed in just a moment. Jim Nolan is the co-author here on Fixing Illinois. We talked a lot in the last half hour about looking forward.
Yes.
Doing things the right way.
Yeah.
You got a breakout section in the book for those following along at home. It's page 93. Rochelle, a dynamic downstate city, about what they did previously to be prepared for what they're doing now. What did Rochelle see? What have they done right?
Well, they obviously, 39 helped and so forth, and when it was built. But nevertheless, I think what Rochelle did that a lot of other communities haven't done is really look towards the future and what were their assets and how could they be used for the future. Too much economic development in the state is trying to take jobs from your community to put them in my community and so forth. That's especially true in the metropolitan area. Rochelle has maybe a luxury that it doesn't have any direct competition right around it that it has to compete with. So it really can look at a long-term investment that will really pay off. And you go across 88 and 39, and you can actually see it. Mm-hmm. But certainly, the internet and how they, saw that as a real opportunity to produce an economic development plan to build on is a perfect example. And so we put the little story about Rochelle in there because it had the opportunity to make itself without a lot of competition trying to steal stuff away from it at the time. So it had time. It had an ability to think about the future and invest for the future, whereas a lot of other communities just look for how do we make an investment for today. And look much at the business structure and how business did business based on the past. Rochelle looked at how is business going to be done in the future. And so we thought what they did was really something that's notable. So we put it in the book as a sidebar and saying, this is what good economic development policy could be. Too much money is spent in this state trying to steal jobs from different areas of the state rather than creating new jobs. And so we wanted to play up what Rochelle has done as a good example of what other people should consider doing.
Conversely, did you look at any community that was Rochelle's polar opposite?
Well, you see...
optimistic, Riley, optimistic.
Well, I didn't mean he didn't look at him nicely and kindly, but, he's got to call him as he sees him.
Well, certainly the most challenging area of the state is probably what you'd consider the inner ring of suburbs in the Chicago metropolitan area. Not enough basic economic base to weather the storms. Mm-hmm. And so when you start... if you have a little town that's completely surrounded by other little towns of 30,000 people, and then things start going south, and certainly some of the southern suburbs are perfect examples of that, it's almost impossible to change course. Rochelle had space around it itself. It had the opportunity. It never started going south, and all it could do is it built from its assets. So there are parts of the state that really are in very tough situations because how do they get out of the spiral that they've gotten themselves into? And much of it's beyond their control. But those who can do, should do. And we just want to applaud Rochelle for what they're doing.
Fixing Illinois is the book. Tom Johnson, the author, he's here in studio. Jim Nolan is the co-author on it, too. You can get it at Amazon.com. Before we let you go, there's 98 suggestions. Mm-hmm. You're not going to agree with all of them. No. I read some I didn't agree with. That's okay. That's okay. Two specifically that are kind of off the beaten path that I think are great. One, eliminate transfers between state funds. When we hear about fund sweeps in Springfield, nothing ticks us off more than taking funds that are meant for, the license plate money gets swept up to use for general charity money. It's unbelievable.
I'm a CPA. I've been around state government finances, watching them for 40 years. Every budget is a mystery to me. Every budget. There are 500 different funds. Think about it. If you had 500 checkbooks and you moved money from one checkbook to the other and to the other and the other to pay your bills, you'd probably get yourself in big trouble.
Yeah, I'd be confused pretty quick.
And certain people, there was this article recently where a business just got owners pled guilty because of exactly that. But we do it. The perfect example was back in 3 years ago. We couldn't make our pension payment. So what we did was, instead of making the pension payment out of the general funds, we created a new fund, and we made it out of that fund. Where did we get the money to make that contribution? We borrowed it. If it would have been borrowed in the general fund, it would have been a little more obvious. But so we created a new fund. The accounting of what happens financially in state government is a mystery. And we say, eliminate the mystery. Let's just put it all the money either in one fund, or at least report it so that these transfers get done away with. So it's one of my frustrations.
A couple of years ago, Adam Andrzejewski had come forth and saying that, what we need is a top-to-bottom forensic audit of everything in the state of Illinois. And he pounded that drum pretty good and got a lot of people's attention. Nobody else has picked that mantle up, I think, since he set it down afterwards. Oh,
we got to do it. One more example that just drives me crazy. All the money for education, and we cut it and so forth, most of it comes out of the general funds. All of the appropriation for operating subsidies for downstate and the RTA, mass transit, comes out of other state funds. Where does the money come from to fund those activities in other states' funds? Transfers out of the general fund. So here, you see education fighting for every dollar because they're competing with Medicaid and they're competing with corrections and every other program of state government. But the blessed subsidy for mass transit is done in other state funds, funded by a transfer out of the general funds.
Yeah.
They don't have to compete for the dollars. That's ridiculous.
On transportation, perfect segue. This is the other one I wanted to get to. Passenger rail, value reliability over speed. Are you trying to tell us that spending billions of taxpayer dollars on high-speed rail to shave 45 minutes off a trip from Chicago to St. Louis might not be the best idea?
You can't be saying that.
The simple answer is yes, that's what we're saying.
Okay, well, there you go.
We were all over that, too.
Well, it's just there's limited resources. Our key asset in our state, there's two. Our transportation system, the basic infrastructure, which you have to constantly reinvest in to keep it current. It creates lots of jobs. Lots of the economy of the country goes through our state because of our transportation system. The other thing that we don't pay enough attention to, but will become in the future one of our biggest assets, is water. We don't appreciate it. We don't protect it. But it's going to be, you look way down the 20, 30 years, I don't know if you believe in global warming or not, who cares? You don't need to. Water's still going to be a tremendous asset. We've got it. Did you see the other day, the America's Cup is coming to the U.S.
Yeah.
4 cities are vying for it. One of them is Chicago, to have the America's Cup on Lake Michigan, the largest, the Great Lakes, the largest body of fresh water in the world. Won't that emphasize the fact that we've got a tremendous asset here?
Yeah.
And it'll be the first time the America's Cup ever was raced on fresh water. Think about that. We should use that to capitalize on how are we going to protect one of our greatest assets for the future generations. So there's some really good things about our state. We want to protect them, we want to grow them, but we want to change how we perceive who we are. And we need to take some bold steps, controversial as they may be, but thinking about the future and how we want to turn our state around.
You are the cheerful warrior on this one.
Hope. There's a lot of hope in this book.
Where's the book available?
Amazon.com, I guess, is where you buy all books today, don't you? Or you can get it on Kindle.
Nice. I have a Kindle.
Certainly you can get it at bookstores as well. It's published by the University of Illinois Press. Even though we're pretty critical of higher education, they still publish the book.
And did read the galleys ahead of time, huh?
Yeah, freedom of press. So anyway, so we hopefully it'll have an impact on what we debate in the upcoming elections cycle. Not where we were and the mistakes we made, but where are we going?
That'd be great. Tom, this was really interesting. We really appreciate you taking this much time out of your day to hang out with us.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
This is Riley and Scott Rewind. News Talk 1440 WROK.